My name's Mike O'Brien, and this is Winning the Volume War for Drummers. More than any other instrument, the drum set and the drummer behind it play a critical role in volume and perceived volume during our services. It's not just good enough to put a drum shield in front of the drums and the drummer and say we've solved all our problems, we don't have to think about this anymore. Church drummers can often play on the extremes of either playing too softly with no impact or too loud playing over the band, or they're playing all over those two extremes. Here are 4 things you can do as a drummer to help win the volume war. Number 1, tune your heart. Every time you go to play in a church service, tune your heart. Come as a servant. Come ready to serve the band and the musicians. Come ready to play together with them. Oftentimes with the drum set, it's the loudest and most profound instrument on the stage. It's taking up tons of sonic space and it has the most impact. And what we can do as drummers is we tend to not play with the band, or we play in front of them or behind them or louder than them or softer than them. And our goal is to fit right within that context and to help complement the singers and the instrumentalists and primarily the worship to help remove obstacles in the room to Jesus. So you're going to have to take what you want and what you prefer and put that to the side and think, what is the best for this situation? The way you play in a club, or the way you see people play on TV or in the studio, or the way you play at home might not be the best way to play at 8 a.m. on a Sunday. That being said, we still must bring our best. Number 2, tune your gear. Think about the placement of your drums. If you can get your drums as far away from the vocal mics as possible and it still look good on stage, that can be a really good thing, because those vocal mics oftentimes will pick up the drums more than they'll pick up the vocals, or when the vocalist steps away, it'll pick up the drums. So they're not made and EQ'd for your drums, so we want to try to get the drums away from the microphone. Think about sound absorption. Put some sound absorption behind the drum set so it catches those reflective surfaces. If you do a quick internet search for rigid fiberglass, you can purchase some of this rigid fiberglass and put it in a wooden structure on wheels and put that behind the drums, or you can put it on the wall behind the drums. Whatever way you can get to capture some of those reflective surfaces behind the drums would be really good to help with volume. Get the source sound right. Great drums sound great. Good wood and good metal just sounds better. And you're hitting it constantly throughout the course of a service. You want all those times that you hit that to sound as good as possible. So, in general, vintage kits with less toms, less cymbals will sound better than modern kits with lots of drums and lots of cymbals. Bigger cymbals actually can sound softer than little tiny cymbals. It's just the way things are. Coated heads oftentimes can sound softer and darker than bright, clear heads. So think about that as you're shopping for drums or you're improving the drum set. Inexpensive drums and cymbals will sound louder because they're just cheaper. If you think of banging trash cans together, just the harshness of that sound versus a $400 piece of metal that is designed to be hit well and sound good. Think about that as you're purchasing and adding to those drum sets. Make sure there are lots of people in your church that are experts at tuning drums. Thankfully, because of YouTube, we all can learn how to tune a drum, and drums that sound in tune will sound softer and be softer in perceived volume. Number 3, choose your sticks. One of the easiest ways to reduce volume in your services is to use a hot rod or a brush or some kind of alternate stick to bring down the volume. It's good for the church to have lots of alternate options available, but it's also important for every drummer to have their own stick bag with several varieties to choose from. You guessed it, the smaller the drumstick, the lighter the sound. Wooden tips are also a little darker, which can be a good thing in controlling perceived volume. Keep in mind that as you use hot rods or brushes, you can still lean into the stick, you can still play, and sometimes you can play with a little bit more velocity and it still sounds good. But most importantly, play to the song, play to the room. In other words, with sticks, also think about stick control. When you hit the drum as hard as you can hit it, it might sound good, it might sound decent, but think about playing to the room and playing with good stick control with your hands. Think about the velocity on which you're hitting the drums as well. And finally, number 4, tune your ear. Play to the room. Different rooms have different characteristics. As a drummer, your job is to choose the drums, sticks, and cymbals that will work well within the room. You might need to change your strategy from place to place. If you're using in-ear monitors, pay careful attention to how loud you are playing, as you might not know how loud you're playing because your ears are blocking out all the ambient sound. If you're using a wedged monitor, think about the placement and the mix. Get really picky about that as the drummer so you're not overplaying to the room. And finally, I want you to think contextually within a song. If you, from verse to chorus to the next verse to the next chorus to the end of the song, think about if you're just banging your hi-hat in the same velocity the whole time for the whole song, it might come across as louder than if you think more creatively and you think about using your ride cymbal and different colors within the ride cymbal, and the hi-hat, different colors within the hi-hat, your floor tom, different colors within that. As you're playing, think about your velocity. During the course of a set, think about those 4 or 5 or 6 or 8 songs. Have you explored the different colors of the drums, or are you just playing it the same way for every song? The different sticks are really good for this. So, drummers, remember your vital role in the volume discussion. Realize that with the changing of leaders and instrumentation of the band, the time of the day, the song choice, all these are variables that you'll have to be aware of. Create relationships with your spouse, with friends, with the sound guys, so you can create a gauge of if you're playing too loud or you're playing too soft, you can learn how to tune your playing to the room. Working together, drummers, you can help us win the volume war.